Welcome back, guys. It's Mincy, and today we're going to be going over something that I've really been trying to work on myself and trying to help out the community as a whole get a grasp on, with the fact that we can now get into elemental shamans, resto shamans, and enhanced shamans. I'm going to be working on a pre-raid shaman gearing guide of the stat prios and the talent builds on each of the specs. We're going to start off first with the elemental. It's my favorite class to play as a shaman personally. If you guys like this guide, don't forget to drop a like. And if you aren't subscribed already, it'd be awesome if you could subscribe. It really helps the channel. And also, if you guys are ever bored, I do stream on Twitch just about every day. Of course, me and Scotty J are going to be doing our launch extravaganza, where on the 1st we're going to be doing a charity stream. All donations go towards that charity. And then we are going to be streaming non-stop, no shutting the stream off until Magtheridon dies. So it'll be really interesting, and I'd love to have you guys come in and pop in and say hey. But now that we got all the boring parts out of the way, let's get into the guide and let's start off with the stat prios. So starting off with the stat priorities, you have spell power over your spell critical strike rating. Now, the reason we do this generally is because entry-level tier 4 raids, they're not going to last as long, so getting out those big hits, those bigger initial numbers, is going to be more useful. The spell critical strike rating is very useful, just because of the sweet fact that everyone that's playing an elemental shaman loves their crits and loves to see those big, juicy yellow numbers. We can't lie. As far as hit goes, you get 3 from your totems, and you get 6 from your talents, so it's not really necessary obviously to stack hit. The elemental shamans only need 9% hit, so you're just about set up right there just by going for your spell power over your spell critical strike. So this is the elemental shaman talent build that I go with personally, and that I know a few people in my guild will be going with. If you want, just go ahead and pause the screen here and take from this build what you may. You know, you could differ from it. It's not a set build like you have to go this build. You can choose and pick how you want to play, but this is what I would be going, and this is what my guild will be using as a talent build. First off, with this guide, we're going to start off with the head slot. Now, the head slot, a lot of casters are going to be using this tailoring spell strike hood. If you can get your hands on the cloth cooldowns, then go ahead and you're going to want to use this spell strike hood, although it will be replaced in tier 4 with the tier 4 set itself. So just keep that in mind. Some people would suggest not going for that and going for the Incanter's Cowl. That drops off in Mechanar, Paltheon, the Calculator. And then right next to it, we've got the Hood of Oblivion. You're definitely going to be looking at for this. This is going to be an arc. It's going to be Harbinger Skyrus. Very, very simple pieces to pick up, and generally you're not going to have a problem getting them. You might have a problem against another caster, but if you work your group around that, you are not going to have any issues at all. Moving on to the next slot. So we have a few options here. A couple come from dungeons and one comes from a quest. So I see we have the Brooch of Heightened Potential. Yes, it does have hit rating, but it has a solid amount of crit, and it has a solid amount of spell power as well. That will be a good option if you don't see any other of the 3. That Brooch of Heightened Potential is going to come from Shadow Lab, so you're going to be doing your Kara attunement anyways, and that comes off of the Blackheart, the Incinerator. Next up, we have Torque the Sethic Prophet. Now, this is going to be a solid piece. Look at all that crit. It has a little bit less spell power, so you probably will be trying to go for the quest item for the spell power if you're trying to stack that. But from this piece right here, this is going to come from Brother Against Brother, and that's going to be Arkandun. So for the Hydrafang necklace, that's going to drop off in the Heroic Underbog, Gazan. And then we have the last but not least, the quest item, Natasha's Ember Necklace. Now, Natasha's Ember Necklace is a reward from the Houndmaster. So moving over to the shoulder slot, we have 2 dungeon items and then a quest item. Ironically enough, both these dungeon items do drop from the same dungeon. This is going to be the Pauldrons of Wild Magic and the Meta-Etched Spaulders. Both drop off of Heroic Slave Pens from Quag. And then we have the quest item, Spaulders of the Torn Heart, and that's going to be dropping off of the Cipher of Damnation questline. Now, if I was to choose either of the 3 of these, obviously, I would probably pick up the Spaulders of the Torn Heart if I don't get the Wild Magic. But if the Mana Etched Spaulders dropped, I wouldn't be dissatisfied because of the gem slots. Moving on to the back or the cloak slot, whatever you prefer to call it, we have 2 quest items and then a dungeon cloak as well. So we're going to start off with the Ogre Slayer's cover. That's going to be a drop, well, a reward from Chowar the Pillager. That's in the Grand Quest. There is a slight change to that quest. For the dungeon, Baba's Cloak of Arcanistry, that's going to be dropping off in Mech from Hetheon, the Calculator. And then the final quest that we have here, the Cloak of Woven Energy, that is going to be hitting the Mother Lode. That is a Netherstorm quest as well. Now, if you're going to be stacking spell power, I probably would be going with the Cloak of Woven Energy. Now, there is one tailoring BOE cloak that I did leave out of this. There is no reason that I should have left it out, but I just completely walked over it. It is the Cloak of the Black Void, and that's a BOE tailoring item, as I just said. That is going to be an exceptional option as well. So for the chest, we have a few options. You have one that comes from dungeons, then you're going to have one from leatherworking, and then you have the BOE or the world drop. Now, the dungeon, the Mana Etched Vestments, that is going to come off the Epoch Hunter in Old Hillsbred Foothills. There is the Leatherworking Netherstrike Breastplate, which is what I recommend the most. Generally, you're going to be a leatherworker for the drums. Yes, there is the Tinnitus buff, but if you are the one Ellie in the group of casters, you probably will be the person that would be likely to hold the drums. This is going to be from Dragonscale Leatherworking. Now, the Robe of the Crimson Order, the hit is very unnecessary, but it does have a nice chunk of spell power. Now, bear in mind that a lot of casters are probably going to want this, as hit is a problem for a few classes like a Warlock or a Mage. So you might have some competition with that piece. But I will say the dungeon and the leatherworking chest do have gem slots, and those can be useful for just about any class, the Resto or the Elemental. For the bracers, we have quite a few options. We have 2 dungeon drops and a tailoring and a leatherworking. My recommendation is going with the Netherstrike bracers. They do have a gem slot and they are very solid, and they also give you mana per 5. That is going to be useful as an elemental. You will probably be going quite a bit. So to cut down on costs for mana potions, you probably want to stick with the Netherstrike bracers. Now, the bracers of Havoc, that is a tailoring BOE drop. Generally, within the first week, someone's going to have this pattern. It's probably going to make it. It doesn't cost more than 50 gold, roughly, and that would be on my server, so that's subject to change for everyone as well. Now, the Bands of Negation, those are going to drop from Heroic Mana Tombs off of Nexus, Prince Shafar, and then we have the World's End Bracers. Now, these are going to be a solid option as well, and the World's End Bracers are going to be dropping off Heroic Blood Furnace, Gildan the Breaker. Moving on to the hand slots, we have a few options. 2 dungeons and a quest. So we have the Earth Mantle hand wraps. Now, those are going to drop from Mechaneer Steam Rigger in the Steam Vaults. Then the other dungeon that we have, the Mana Etched Gloves. Those are going to drop off of Omar the Unscarred in Heroic Ramparts. Now, for the Gloves of the High Magus, that is going to be a quest. That is News of Victory. That is a Shadow Moon Valley quest. If I was to choose any of the 3 out of these, it would probably be the Mana Etched Gloves, especially if you have the Spalders. Not just because the 2 set, because let's be real, the 2 set isn't the greatest, but we do have 2 gem slots. The quest item, the High Magus Gloves there, they're going to have a nice chunk of spell crit strike rating and as well a nice spell power rating. We have a nice chunk of epic options for you guys when it comes down to the belts. I probably should have labeled the belt in purple, to be honest, just to change things up. But we have a tailoring, a leatherworking, and a dungeon drop. All 3 of these are very good, very viable, although I would go more towards the tailoring and leatherworking just for the gem slot option. But if you don't have either of those by chance, or it's just too difficult to obtain, then you do have the beautiful dungeon Wavesong Girdle, and the Wavesong Girdle is going to drop off Heroic AC, and that is Exarch the Meldar. The leatherworking, obviously, it's pretty straightforward. That's going to be your dragon scale leatherworking. Now, this is going to be huge, especially if you have all the other nether spite pieces, because of the 3 set. The 3 set gives you that beautiful 23 spell damage. That's going to be very, very big for you. And if you do just so happen to have tailoring or know a tailorer, the Girdle of Runation, that is going to be a very solid option for you as well. That's going to have a ton of spell crit, and it's going to have a bunch of spell damage as well. Now, if you want tailoring and you just so happen to have the materials, the Spell Strike pants are a very solid option, especially if you have the hood for the sole reason of the 2 set. Gives a chance when harmful spells land to increase the damage of your spells and effects by 92 for 10 seconds. Now, this has a 5% proc chance. Still a massive boost to your DPS. Now, if you don't have tailoring, we do have a few other options for you. There is a Reputation pair of pants. I did use the ally clip just because a lot of people that are shamans on the horde side most likely have a good grasp on this, but if you don't, the Tempest leggings are for the horde, and the Kiranai hilt is for the alliance. You need revered in both the Magar for the horde, and Kiranai needs to be revered for the alliance. Now, the dungeon, if you didn't get the rep, which you probably should if you dungeon cleave, but if you didn't and you quested, the Breaches of the Occultist, that's going to be a drop from Heroic BM Aeonus. All three are very solid options. On to what keep your feet warm. It's the boots. We have a few options here, a couple dungeons, and then there's a quest. So for the Sigil Lace boots, we're going to be getting those from Harbinger Skyrus. Then we're going to have the dungeon Moonstrider boots as well. Those are going to be dropping off of Sethical's, Darkweaver Sith. And then for the final, the quest option, the Shatchath Jumpers are going to be Into the Heart of the Labyrinth, the Akandun quest. Now, if I'm going to be choosing, I would technically pick the Sigil Lace boots. Generally speaking, the quest is going to be easier. It's done in the first part of the dungeon. You just go off the side and it's not bad. But I do like the option that the Sigil Lace boots have crit on them as well. So for those shiny things we're putting on our fingers, for the rings, we have quite a few different options. We have 2 from dungeons, 1 from a quest, 1 from reputation, and then we have 1 from badges. Now, the Ring of Cryptic Dreams, that's going to be 25 badges of justice, and that's going to be on the top of Shattrath. Then we're going to have a reputation ring. This is going to be a Scryer's Exalted ring, the Seer's Signet. We have a quest, Hero of the Brood. That's going to be the Band of the Guardian. The dungeon rings, the Scintillating Coral Band, that's going to be dropping off of Hydromancer, Thespia, and that's coming from Steam Vault, the first boss. Then in the other dungeon ring, we have Ringo's Band of Ingenuity, and Ringo's Band of Ingenuity drops off of Wrath Scryer, Thrates. We have a nice chunk of options as far as trinkets go. Now we have 3 dungeon trinkets, a jewel crafting trinket, and a reputation trinket. So the jewel crafting is really easy. That's the figurine Living Ruby Serpent. It's an on-use trinket, and it's very, very useful. There's a reputation trinket, the Scryer's Blood Gem. That's going to be Scryer's Revered. Then we have Quag's Eye. That's going to be sought after by many casters. That's going to come from Quagmirian. And that's going to be in Heroic Slave Pens. The Dungeon Trinket from the Epoch Hunter, the Arcanist Stone, is Heroic Epoch Hunter, or Heroic Old Hillsbred Foothills. And that, last but not least, we have Shafar's Nexus Horn, and that's going to be coming from Harbinger Skyrus. Now, if I was to choose an option, I would probably be choosing Quag's Eye, just because the proc chance is 10% and it has a 45-second cooldown. That's going to be something that's very useful. But if you're someone that likes to use on-use trinkets, I would probably go with the Reputation or the Dungeon, the Scryer's Blood Gem or the Arcanist Stone. Totems, it's pretty straight cut and forward which one you're going to want out of this list, but here is some options if you don't or not have the capability of obtaining one or the other. So the Dungeon Totem of the Void, which drops off Hesh of the Legion. This is in Mechanar. This is going to be what you're wanting. This is going to be what you're sought after. Then you have a Badges Trinket. This is going to cost 15 badges. The Totem of the Pulsing Earth. If you have mana issues, this might be a clear-cut option for you. If you can't obtain either the dungeon one or the badges one, the quest one, it also reduces mana as well. It's just not as hard to obtain. That's Colossal Menace. And then we have a classic BOE one that is actually in the game now that might help you for leveling. This is the Totem of the Storm. I've seen this range from 15 gold all the way up to 180 gold. It's very, very volatile, so if you catch it at a low rate, you might want to toss that on until you can get one of these other trinkets. But that is just an option that I've given you that I know from experience is in the game currently and is easily obtained just by buying it off the auction house. Now for our main hand slot, we have a few options here as well. A couple dungeons, there's a blacksmithing dagger, and then there's a reputation mace. If you were me, if I were you, I would be going with the Gavel of Unearthed Secrets. Now that is going to be exalted the lower city reputation. That's going to be probably your BIS pre-raid, like hands down. If we were going with a blacksmithing option, now this is BOE, so you could also have someone make this. This is the Eternium Runed Blade. Don't know exactly how much it costs, as I'm not a big blacksmithing person, rather, but I'm sure it's obtainable, especially if you have a little bit of gold from leveling. Now the Runesawn Dagger, that's going to be coming from Warbringer Omarang, and that's going to be Shattered Halls. Then we have the Bleeding Hollow Warhammer, and that's going to be off of Heroic Slave Pens, and that's going to come from Quag. So we have a few options for the offhands and shields. Now we're going to start off with the shields from the badges. We have Mazthralril Honor Shield, and that is going to be 33 badges of justice. Then we have another offhand that is a badge that is 25 badges. That is Khadgar's Knapsack. And then we have the other two dungeon options, which is the Manual of the Nethermancer, and we have the Lamp of Peaceful Radiance. The Manual of Nethermancer drops from Nethermancer Sepathia from Mechanar, and then the Lamp of Peaceful Radiance, that is going to be dropping off Harbinger Skyrus. And finally, we have done it. We have completed the whole gearing guide, stat prio, and talent build for an elemental shaman. Thank you guys for watching. If you found it useful, don't forget to subscribe. And if you liked it as well, don't forget to leave it a like. I want to give a big shout out to Mike, one of the officers in guild with me, that's helped me go through some of this content and correctly portray it to the public. And like I said before, I do stream on Twitch, so if you guys are feeling generous or you like watching live streams, my link to my Twitch is in the description below. And on that note, guys, I will see you on the next one. Have a great day.